for this conference.
Favor tomar asiento.
Please take your seats.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Bienvenidos nuevamente a la
Good
Conferencia
afternoon.
Internacional
Welcome
sobre
once again
Panama
to the
Suriname 2025.
International Blue Carbon and Waste Wetlands
Especial a
Conference,
quienes
and
están
one
sumando
special
en este
welcome to the ones that are
momento
now
por nuestra plataforma JUA y también por
connecting with
Zoom.
us through Cuba and Zoom.
Este bloque temático
This
reúne a
blog is
coordinadores
going to
nacionales de
unite
4
national
países
coordinators from
beneficiarios del
4
proyecto
different countries that are
MRV,
beneficiaries
Colombia,
from the MRV
Jamaica,
project,
Suriname y
Colombia,
Panamá.
Jamaica, Suriname,
Compartirán
and Panama.
conocimientos prácticos
And
desde
they're
el
going to share
terreno,
practical
lo
knowledge
que ha
from the
funcionado,
field,
los
the things
desafíos
at the work,
encontrados
the
y
challenges
cómo
that they have
cómo
found,
contribuye
and
el
how their
desarrollo de
work
sistemas
contributes to the development
harmonizados
of
de
the harmonized
monitoreo,
blue carbon
reporte
monitoring,
y
reporting, and
verificación de
verification
carbono
system
en toda la
throughout the
región.
region.
Después de las
After the
presentaciones
individual
individuales,
presentations, we will
invitaremos
invite
a
all the
todos
speakers
ponernos
back to the
nuevamente al
stage
escenario para
for
una
a moderated
discusión
panel
moderada
discussion.
en formato panel. Comenzaremos con
We
la
begin
doctora
with
Paula
Dr. Paula
Cristina
Cristina
Sierra
Sierra
Correa
Correa from
del
INVEMAR,
Instituto de Investigaciones Marinas y Costeras de Colombia, en representación de Colombia.
representing Colombia.
La doctora
Dr.
Sierra
Sierra
Correa
Correa
es
is a
bióloga
marine
marina y
biologist
cuenta con un
with a
doctorado en
master's degree in
cibernética.
geoinformatics.
Forma parte del INVEMAR desde
As
1996,
she has
donde
been with
lidera
INVEMAR
proyectos
since
de investigación en
1996, where she leads a
agricultura marina
multidisciplinary
y
team in
políticas
marine
públicas.
science
Su
and public
experiencia
policy. Her
incluye
policy includes
capacitación en
coastal
costeras,
planning,
adaptación marina en
ecosystem-based
ecosistemas
adaptation, and
y
blue carbon
conservación del
conservation.
carbono azul.
She has
Ha
coordinated
coordinado
more
más
than
de 30
30
proyectos de
research projects,
investigación
both national and
internacionales
international, and she's the author of
internacionales
25
y es autora de más de
scientific
25
publications.
publicaciones científicas.
Her
Su
presentation is
presentación se
titled
titula
Certification
Certificación y
of
acciones de
Conservation Actions to
conservación
Reduce
para
Carbon
reducir emisiones
Emissions
de carbono y
and Benefit
beneficiar
Local
las
Communities.
comunidades locales.
Let's
Le damos
welcome
una cordial
Dr.
bienvenida. Adelante,
Sierra
profesor.
Correa. A warm round of applause, please.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes para
And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to all of you for being here, present, and the ones that are also online.
Vamos entonces a hacer un recorrido
We
por
are
lo que
going to
tenemos en
do a
Colombia
small
y
summary of what we
particularmente
have in
la
Colombia,
experiencia que han escuchado
a
en
mini tour, let's speak,
varias de las
and
presentaciones.
the experience that you heard in
Primera de ellas,
multiple of the
Vida Manglar.
presentations, that is the one for
Aquí
Vida Manglar.
entonces lo
And
primero
the
es
first thing that
mencionarles
we
que
want to
en
share here is
Colombia
that
tenemos
in
un
Colombia,
proceso que ha sido de
we have a
largo
process
plazo
that
en
is
estos
long term.
temas de carbono azul.
In these topics of blue
Como
carbon,
iniciamos, ni siquiera existía
and
el término
when
carbono
we
azul.
started, we didn't even have this terminology. We started talking about
Procesos de
the processes of the
procesos
Red
de
Plus, of deforestation and degradation that
en
was
zonas de
avoided in
conservación.
conservation areas.
En este
And these
pequeño repaso que tenemos acá,
small
Colombia
summary that we have
dentro
here in
de sus
Colombia,
metas
within the
tiene
goals,
alcanzar el
we have that to reach
51% de
51%
reducción
of
en
a
las
reduction in
emisiones al
emissions
2030.
for
Y
2030.
dentro de sus
And within
NDCs
these
tiene
NDCs,
efectivamente el tema de
we have the
manglares
topic of mangroves
como
and
ecosistema
how
no con
they're,
carbono azul
they're
también.
as an ecosystem, not as blue
Tenemos
carbon,
ya
but we have that
metas
these
alcanzables,
goals that are
como lo
quantifiable,
vimos también en
as
la
we saw in
presentación
the
anterior.
presentation of Dr.
Nosotros tenemos un
Hoyos.
sistema de información
And we have
ambiental
this
en Colombia que se
environmental
llama el SIAC, es una
system
sigla
for Colombia that is
inglesa,
called SIAC,
y
that is
dentro del
this
SIAC
acronym that you
tenemos
see
los
there. And
componentes
within the
de
SIAC, we have the components
NVI,
of NVR,
monitoreo
the
y
monitoring and
verificación, y por
verification,
supuesto
obviously, and
el
the things that
sistema
have to do with the
financiero.
financial
Y
system.
asimismo tenemos una
And in the
serie de
same way, we also
sistemas
have
que
another series of
agrupan la
systems that
información
group this
clave.
information, the key
Entonces,
information.
la que tiene que ver con
This is the one that
bosques,
has
la
to
que
do
tiene
with
que ver con el
forests,
sistema hidrológico.
with hydrologic
Dentro de ese esquema
topics,
de
and
carácter
within this
nacional
scheme that has this
existe un
national
sistema que se llama el Sistema de
component,
Información
there is also
Ambiental
another system that is called the
y el
Maritime
Sistema de Información Ambiental
National
es coordinado por
Information System, and
INVEMAR
this is
y es de
coordinated by
carácter
INVEMAR. It
nacional
is
y
as a
es
national
donde
character, and it
debemos
is the
tener
one in which you
los
should
datos
put all the
más
data
precisos.
for
El subsistema
coast,
que
for the
aquí
coast
se
and
llama Sigma
maritime
es el
data. The
sistema que
coast system that's called
tenemos
Sigma
en
is the one that
Colombia.
has the information about the
No
mangroves.
es que tengamos
And once again, it's not
modelos
that we have a
específicos de
specific
carbono azul,
model
pero sí
related to
lo
blue
que
carbon, but
corresponde
the things that
a los temas
correspond to
relacionados con estructura,
related to structure,
composición,
composition,
gestión del
and
ecosistema.
management of the ecosystem itself.
La larga trayectoria que
The
tiene el INVEMAR
factor that the INVEMAR has in doing this kind of research with different entities on the field and also with the academy and also communities is what has led us to take international methodologies as, for example, the ones that you see here for blue carbon. That is the maybe the guideline that you all know, the one from Howard. Jennifer has also worked with us directly in multiple of these projects, fine-tuning many things. And for the case of Colombia, we have the field manual and or the field handbook. And what we did for mangroves and blue carbon is this proposal of methodological guide for carbon estimation, and it is in a peer review process as this time to be able to be published. And this might be one of the elements that is going to contribute to the region in a considerable way, because in this methodological proposal, we are showing the advantages and disadvantages of working in these areas of mangroves in places as ours, and also the incidents that we had with the Berra methodology, because at the beginning we didn't consider multiple of the processes that were necessary for these mangrove ecosystems. Hopefully we are able to publish that. And about the available data in Colombia, I told you about SIGMA, that is the information system for the management of mangroves. And these are the different models that you see in the list. And we have the mangrove maps of Colombia, and this is a map that you can actually get that. You have the QR code there if you maybe want to have it. This is a map that is being updated all the time, and what we try to have here is at one scale in the country. Behind this map there is information at a lower scale in some other areas of the country, and maybe highlight the size in which we have multi-temporal analysis. We have the Ciénaga Grande de Santa Marta that you're going to visit tomorrow, the ones that are going to this field trip with us. We have the area of the Morrosquillo Gulf, is in which the Vida Manglar project is. We have the area of Huapis and Candem in the Pacific, and also the province of Cauca and Nariño, and there are more or less the middle of the Pacific and through the frontier with Ecuador, as you see. And from those areas, we have multi-temporal data, and they allow us to take a look at the history, what we had and what we have right now. And I just want to show you the timeline here to be able to tell you that the processes are not immediate as we may hope. This is medium and long term. And we started in 2013 asking if the mangroves were really emitters, maybe capturing this CO2. That was the global discussion at the time. And we found that mangroves in good state of health are capturing carbon dioxide and the greenhouse gases. We saw that in the presentation of Dr. Stephen Cook. And in this state of degradation, they are emitters. So at that point, that was the connection that we did to be able to tell, okay, we can now get into these processes of degradation and deforestation that were avoided, because at that point we were not talking about these blue carbon ecosystems. So with all of these, we did activities in multiple different sites, and we showed what we did in Córdoba, what we did in Valle del Cauca, in La Guajira with seagrasses and also mangroves. And Diana told you about this yesterday. And in 2020, then we saw the first certification, or maybe the only certification that we currently have. And even at the global scale, talking about blue carbon credits with this Berra methodology. And until today, we were doing replicas of this to be able to understand how much is the carbon that we have in each one of these departments, or maybe provinces, as you may say, in other places, especially in the Colombian Caribbean and also a part in the Pacific. And this is not something that we do alone. Obviously, this is a hefty amount of people that is contributing. And for us, this topic was born, or this was born as a sustainability proposal for the managing plan of these protected maritime areas in Colombia. the mangroves are owned by the government and are for public use. This land does not belong to anyone in particular. It belongs to every single Colombian, being a public piece of land and has some specific conditions. And in the regional protected maritime areas, we could have the certainty that the local environmental authority being accountable for that protected area could then try to protect that area, that place. And so at this point, we started the protected area of Vida Manglar. For that reason, this map that I'm showing here, what you see in this purple color, these are the maritime protected areas that are as a subject of conservation used for mangroves. So then I'm going to get into the details of this map of Colombia that we know is now in the upper part of South America, and from all the areas, these are the island areas, San Andres, Providencia, and Santa Catarina that you see in this map, and then we did a bit of zoom to all the other sites in which we have sampling all over the country, along the Caribbean and also the Pacific coast. And this one that we have here that is right there in the middle of the Colombian Caribbean is this area that is Cispata. And this is the area in which the project or maybe program, this program Vida Manglar is, and we established right now 196 monitoring plots. And from all of these established points, these are distributed in 9 different departments or 9 provinces. And for the case of Cispata, we are based on the environmental zoning that we did for mangroves, and this is what you see here. And you see how these zones were divided. What you see in red is the one that is protected at 100%, no take, no entry. As the one that we see in green is what could be multiple use, and the ones that you see in yellow are the potential restoration areas. So when we talk about the prospecting to 2045, then the map should change in this way. So these protected, or these areas that could be restored are restored, as you see, as also the other ones that we see in yellow on this other side. That is the projection for 2045. And there is the place in which, with this managing plan and with the context that I just provided, we can start then talking about blue carbon in this area of Vida Manglar. And this is a timeline used to show that apart from these concepts, what the concepts are going to evolve, the processes that happen can also change throughout time. We are not static, and because it also depends on the amount of information that we have available. And then in 2016, 2017, we thought that certified with Plan Vivo will be the best thing to happen. We were certifying these ecosystemic services. And then we start seeing how can we start applying the various methodologies, and we decided that it might be better to go in that direction. Then one question was done to me, and one of these other events that I had, these breaks, these conversations, and it was how Apple started being the one that paid all the things that we did in Vida Manglar, and that is fake. Apple is just adding this cherry on top. Apple comes to a process that was already built for many years, and they come here in 2021. We already have all of these things behind us, and what happens is that at some point they say, okay, we will love, because of the social responsibility, to understand what is this thing of blue carbon in mangroves. What is this? This sounds kind of weird. So then at this point, we bring them to the table. They decide that we need to have confidentiality until we decide that this works or not. And it's going to work because we had a lot of time in this process. We were to assemble the PDD, and this is not INVEMAR only, all the other entities that are a part of this logo that you see here. And this logo is even built with the communities. It's not something that we did alone. You heard this morning our community leader, and I think that the process speaks for itself. And we also have some methodological guides for us to understand here in the country how things happen with each one of these standards or certifications. So then this is Glad, and is not just certifying an area because you can. If you saw the title of my presentation, this has to do with certify the conservation process. And what we have here is preserving the mangrove that we have and then improving this mangrove. So then the data for this project, as you probably heard, we heard about this morning with Amy, also the tons that we are helping to reduce, and now we are now in the process of recertification. We have our auditor, or we are now showing that the carbon that we said we had is there, and also that we haven't lost the one, these potential areas with new carbon that was captured. And this is the amount of stakeholders that are involved. You see, we have 14 different mangrove associations. We have the institutions, let's say, from the core team, that is the Ministry of Environment, corporations, Omacha Foundation, some institutes, and international conservation, and also some productive associations that are the ones that allow us to improve in that regard. These are the strategic lines. We have one that has to do with strengthening local governance, another one that is sustainable productive activities, that people that were using the mangrove, for them to have other different opportunities now, and the fact of recovery and rehabilitation of mangroves, and also monitoring and control. And basically, the benefits that we find are not just about mitigation, but also adaptation. And for that reason, in this scheme that you see here, this is part of one of the articles that I'm working on. And from the point of view of climate change management, we have ecosystem-based adaptation, but also mitigation on the other hand. And we have this thin line in which we're talking about the ecosystems, the service that they provide, and also the handling or planning that is we should have on these territories. And at this point, that you see the marine coastal planning, the usages, the orientations of development, and also the threshold for these ecosystems, or the limits for this ecosystem. And within this process, and I cannot get really deep into each one of the topics, we have the entirety of development of capacity and awareness, and not only for the area of Vidamanglar, but this is exported to the other areas that we've been working on. And we have, and within this that I mentioned, we have Ocean Teacher Global Academy, that is the Global Academy from UNESCO, in which we have one course for blue carbon that is done annually, and in which multiple of the processes that we work on, we add them to this strategy. We have courses on protecting maritime areas and seeking and remote sensing that also provides some kind of focus to this process. And we all have all the things related to gender equality, and we try to have the trainings and also the generation of the capability on the territories to have a kind of balance. And all these topics of recovery and rehabilitation of the mangrove is based substantially in maintaining the hydrological regime, not just planting. If we maintain the hydrological regime, we will be able to have a natural regeneration, and for us to go from something like this to something like this. And this is the people that has been working with us on the field. And what I was talking about, the productive systems, and You also heard about this in one of the previous presentations. We have things about birds, ecotourism, beekeeping as well, agricultural production, and as you know, this is something local, and you can use this productivity that is in happens in natural places of the Rio Sinu, that when you see high tide, that you can have important crops growing in the region. And all the things that we do about participative monitoring, not only about the mangrove ecosystem, but also all the species and the biodiversity that it is um, supported by this ecosystem. We choose these key species that are in caimans and manatees. When we talk about caimans, the process that we do in this area, we get these um, caiman outside of this red list of the UCN, and this is also a golden star from in this project. And all of these emerging technologies and what we are working on this MRV project, in which the things that we did initially was training, kid training in this area of La Caimanera, in which we learn how to use the equipment. And you can also thank here the lovely gifts that we're bringing for us to continue working. So once again, thank you very much for those. And the idea is to process this information for us to be able to identify where the advantages and disadvantages, for us to have this clear mapping of this area for us to see how much can we replicate in the future and how can we provide sustainability for this. And at last, some key messages for you to take. And the carbon credits are used the root of the mangroves. It is true that this money is useful for around 20 to 25% of the implementation of one of these managing plans that was established long term. Vida Manglar is now turning 10 years old, started from 2015 until now. And at this point in which we are working on recertification, we are in the third of this marriage, as we said. I think it was a really a bet of long term to 2045. So the rest of the funds for providing support to this area has to have some other roots. So then we talk about compensation, public funds, donations, and any others that you may think of, because we need to be very creative in regards to this. And the four topics are, well, the first that we have a new approach or innovative approach to finance these maritime protected areas, and I use the word monetize, to monetize these ecosystemic services, to speak this language of the people that speak like this, the financiers and others. It's also a strategy to maybe increase price. But in the process, what we did is to go to an auction, and or then our credits are over $30. So the second thing is to provide or to prove that we have additional value or this additionality, not, as we said before in these other talks, is to add to this carbon system, but these additionality processes of these new focuses of our approaches. And one of the things, and from INVEMAR, I do have to say that we do designs, so then the quality of the data is very important. It is vital. If we are unable to prove that we have the carbon there, that it is generating this additionality, then there's no process of conservation nor credits. The fourth is all the things that have to do with empowering and engagement of the stakeholders, and also legislation that we have in each one of the countries. What we have to do is to look on long term and to try to see these topics of local resiliency and in general of the legislation that is going to be applied for each one of the countries. For the case of Colombia, the mangroves are public and usage, so they have a different way of handling compared to the maritime protected areas, and they can maybe finance these maritime protected areas with carbon credits, and we need a kind of vision that is innovative. So thank you very much.
Creo que las preguntas
I
las vemos
think
después.
we are going to have questions after the panel.
Agradecemos a la
Okay,
doctora
we
Sierra
thank
Correa
Dr. Sierra
por
Correa
su presentación.
for the
A
presentation.
continuación,
And up
escucharemos
next,
una
we're going to
presentación
hear a
grabada del
presentation that is
profesor
pre-recorded from
Terrence Forrester, quien es
Professor Terrence
científico
Forrest, that is
principal de la Universidad de las Indias
the
Occidentales
clinical science
para el
for the
programa de
West Indies
soluciones
University for
para el
the
desarrollo de
uh,
distintos países. La
solution
presentación
for
tiene
developing
2 años.
countries, and is
El
representing
profesor
Jamaica.
Forrester es científico
Professor
clínico,
Forrester is a clinical
reconocido
scientist
por
that
su
is recognized
investigación
for
sobre
his
hipertensión
research on
nociva en
hypertension,
enfermedades
obesity, and chronic
crónicas
disease
en
in the
poblaciones del
Caribbean
Caribe
and
y
West
África
African
Occidental.
populations.
Su trabajo ha influido
His
en
work has
políticas de
influenced
salud
regional health
regionales
policy
y ha
and has
sido
been
galardonado
recognized with
con
several
varios premios,
awards,
incluyendo la Orden de
including the Order
Jamaica
of
por sus
Jamaica for the
servicios a
services
la
to
investigación
medical
médica.
research.
Desde
Since
2019
2019,
lidera
he
la
has
restauración de manglares genéticos
led the
declarados
mangrove restoration
protegidos
in
en
southern
Jamaica,
Clarendon in
que
Jamaica,
incluye una variedad
and
de
this includes a
proyectos
variety of
ecológicos y
ecological and health
sociocomunitarios.
and
El título de su
ecological products.
presentación
The
es
title of the presentation is
Restauración
Mangrove
Manglares en
Restoration in
Clarendon,
Clarendon,
en Jamaica.
Jamaica. So let's hear
Vamos a
from
escuchar la
Professor Forrester.
presentación que será proyectada ahora en la pantalla.
Real pleasure to be able to present some aspects of the Jamaica Mangrove Restoration Project. I'm Terrence Forrester. I'm the manager for this project and really regret not being able to be there with you in Colombia, but that was unavoidable. So for the next few minutes, I want to update those of you who are already familiar with the project and bring into the picture those of you who are not knowledgeable about the project. And if you track my cursor along the coastal forest, about 100 kilometers of it, it's about 3,500 hectares, and these orange areas, large orange areas, add up to roughly 50%, a little bit short of 50% of the total area, and since 2004, they suffered dieback. With the DEFRA funds administered by IDB in 2021, we brought on board an excellent consulting firm, contractors, Coastal Dynamics Limited, and together we have executed this project. The approach is common sense, assessing the site characteristics by detailed measurements from the sea all the way up to the catchment areas. And with that understanding, try to make up our minds exactly why the mangroves died. Based on that baseline assessment and the ideas about the cause of die-off, to develop a restoration plan, and then where we are now, to implement the nature-based solutions that will restore the mangroves. These are the 10 kind of critical data gathering steps that led to an understanding of the baseline characteristics and the die-off, and which ultimately underlay and underpin the restoration plan. Literature review, of course, satellite surveys, aerial photography using both LiDAR and optical, coastal monitoring studies, including beach profile, wave climate, tidal excursions, meteorology, hydrologic monitoring from all the way up in the catchment area, right through the river basins, and then, of course, complemented by the tidal inundation, flora and fauna, both terrestrial and aquatic, carbon stock assessment, above and below ground, socioeconomic assessments, and then using modeling studies, numerical modeling, to hypothesize based on all this baseline information, including inputs from the community that had very valuable historical insights, hypothesizing which nature-based actions would reestablish hydrology principally, and so allow for the spontaneous regeneration of the mangroves. Those big three contributors to dieback are tropical storms, which changed the topography, especially the beach profiles, and silted up historical channels that brought seawater in and out. Changes in land use, the 20,000 hectares here, for about 400 years, was in sugarcane. Flooding irrigation was the method used to water the plants. And therefore, for 400 years, there was a lot of water, fresh water going in the back. Sugar started to die in 1970-something because of changes in trade preferences, and completely died in 2019 with the closure of the last remaining factory. And therefore, fresh water from the back ceased. Other changes in land use, including the establishment of an aquaculture shrimp farm here in one of the areas, roads across another area here, as well as here. Together with the historical references and recollections of the community, we added published events, and so put together a fairly comprehensive understanding of the steps towards the death of these mangroves. This is one example, the same shrimp farm. So in 2003, when the shrimp farm was being established, you can see nice healthy mangroves here along the coast. But 2 years later, the mangroves appear to have died back. And that dieback lasted through the closure of the shrimp farm in about 2012, all the way up to when we started looking at it in 2021, and so they are today. Some pictures recapitulating what I just said. So LiDAR based on this matrice DJI, optical on this smaller DJI, and the LiDAR, of course, giving this kind of elevation model from sea level, where the mangroves are, to increasing elevations as you get into the transitional areas. It's important to note that tidal excursions are less than a meter here, probably 0.7 to 0.8 of a meter. Tidal gauges set out to sea and a weather station. Beach profiles done manually. Sediment transport along the coast following the drift, the sediment availability, wind speed and direction. Characterizing flow through some of the major rivers, 3 of them, Milk River, the Rio Minna, which this is, and the Salt River, by getting the cross-section and then measuring the speed of the transport of water in this cross-sectional area. And we have a permanent radar observation that continues to track the flow through at least one river. Water and soil sampling, as I said, the catchment area all the way down, using wells and riverine observation posts from the National Water Authority. Soil sampling, both coring for below ground and standard measures, DBH and height for trees. And then over the entire area, LiDAR for canopy. Flora and faunal assessment, both aquatic and terrestrial, were performed for obvious reasons. And this really kind of gives a flavor for the serious and continuing engagement with the community. Here in a participatory GIS workshop, we had members from the community over a full day come in and add their understandings and their ideas about what went wrong and what could possibly be done to improve it. Those weren't the only group meetings. We had focus groups. This is a fisherman's group, Fisherman's Beach, and these are fishermen here looking and doing pretty much the same thing with the maps. And of course, the SES survey, house-to-house surveys. And so where we are now is that we understand, we have a pretty good understanding why each of these areas, nuanced by area, died. We have restoration plans that have been established. We have conceptual engineering and we have detailed engineering, barring the last bit of tweaking so that the precise excavations can take place. All permits are on hand. And really all we are doing now is waiting for the IDB approval to actually begin the restoration. I'm going to comment on one area, not go through all 4 areas, just to show the application of some of the restoration planning. So here you see Boggy Pond, Mangrove Area 2. And what you're looking at here is the coastline, and you're also looking at a historical channel that was blocked that in 2019, as a pilot project, we dredged and allowed the seawater to enter and get back out. This is the direction of the currents.
Okay, I found this on the web. For seawater, is the direct...
Sorry about that. That's AI out of control. In addition to that, this road here, which had been put down by the community in order to access this beach, had completely blocked the flow of water westwards. We had a pilot culvert here, and between the two of them since 2019, there has been significant regrowth in this area, which had looked pretty much like this before. In this area, what is planned? What is planned is a supplementation of the culverting across this road based on the volumes indicated by the numerical modeling. And so we're going to put on 3 additional culverts across here and dredge the channel that was opening and slightly reoriented with a view to keeping it open better. So first steps, about 1.5 years ago, prior to funding hiatus, we cleared one of the channels that will conduct storm runoff water into the mangrove. There's another one here that needs to be cleared. As I said before, put 3 additional culverts sized to conduct enough water to improve the hydrology, and 3 vegging this channel. So no hard structures apart from the culverts, which are meant to reestablish hydrological connectivity. The timeline, well, between 2022 and 2024, we did baseline surveys, restoration plan, engineering. There is a funding hiatus that's almost completed now. We've done the design and are about to do the construction between August, this is now August, and November. And of course, defects notification period, the monitoring phase. Challenges, there are lots of minor, small problems to solve over the 4-year history of this project. And perhaps 3 challenges worth mentioning is 1, the risk management plan excludes extreme weather events. During the restoration phase itself now, during the ensuing monitoring period required long-term for the regrowth of the forest, and there's no current solution for this. So it's a big risk. The funds that are available are insufficient to implement the full restoration plan. And with this in mind, we are looking for additional funding that would chip in when the current project ends in March. And security concerns were a little bit greater than we had anticipated, requiring a close collaboration with the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And this has essentially mitigated the risk to the personnel in the field. And in fact, the Jamaica Constabulary Force their community branch is really very well integrated into the community. So thank you very much. Apologies for not being able to take questions, but of course, I'm sure email and WhatsApp, we can cover those. Really grateful for the opportunity, and good evening.
Afortunadamente vamos a tener un espacio para preguntas ahora en el panel.
We're going to have some Q&A during the panel. We thank you, Professor Forrester, for his presentation. Our next speaker is Valentien Moe Soe Let from the Foundation for Forest Management and Control representing Suriname. Mrs. Moe Soe Let specializes in land use and land cover monitoring. She applies remote sensing and environmental science to track forest changes, inform sustainable land management and land use, and integrate local community knowledge into conservation strategies. The presentation is called National Forest Monitoring System and Mangrove Monitoring. Let's welcome our speaker with a warm round of applause.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all still energized for this presentation. Yes, I see some nodding faces, so happy that everyone is still energized. Great. So first of all, excuses for my English because we are the Dutch-speaking Guyana. So yes, please be patient with my English. So I'll be presenting to you the National Forest Monitoring System of Suriname, which includes the mangrove monitoring. Yes, we have monitored the different mangrove species, and measurements has been done when it comes to the carbon stock and the health of our mangrove. And of course, through the presentation, you will see the importance of monitoring the mangrove ecosystem. Yes, here you will see all the activities included within our National Forest Monitoring System. Within this system, we not only monitor deforestation within the land use and land cover transitions, but also we monitor degradation. And our degradation monitoring focuses on the forestry sector, and the Sustainable Forestry Information System, the SFIS, monitors the plant logging activities, but also we must consider the unplanned logging activities, so that is why we also have the near real-time monitoring system, where we have where we use satellite images to see where the unplanned activities are taking place. Okay, when it comes to the monitoring of the land uses and land cover, we have the satellite land monitoring system, where we also include the monitoring of the mangrove. And of course, we have our National Forest Inventory, measured once in the other types of forests, but twice in the mangrove, so that's also interesting. Later on, we'll see some results of this monitoring project. And of course, within this data production process, we also include the communities within the community-based monitoring, the CBM. And all this data is being reported not only nationally, but also internationally. We have, for example, we have submitted 3 forest reference emission levels already to the UNFCCC, and we have also obtained results for the period 2016 till 2021. Unfortunately, we haven't sold the credits yet. Yes. So moving forward to the satellite land monitoring system, as you can see on the top, we produce the land use and land cover map transitions for the period 2000 till 2023. All this data is available in our GeoPortal, and it is downloadable. And recently, we have explored another method, that is the systematic sampling method, where we have distributed about 26,000 points over Suriname. And we have classified all these points in a collaborative way, including all national stakeholders within the training process and the classification process. Oops. Yes, sorry. As you can see in the maps above, a minimum land area is being used when it comes to monitoring. This means that the dynamic coast is not included in this monitoring process. So that is, this means that the mangrove is also not included in this monitoring process. So we have monitored the mangrove in a separate project, and that's the GCCA Plus project. And thanks to this project, we have strengthened our collaboration. We have partnered with CELOS, that's the Center for Agricultural Research in Suriname. And we also have collaborated with the University of Ghent, as you have seen the presentation of Jasper yesterday. So, yes, thanks to this collaboration, we have done a lot. So, if we look at our inventory database, we have 218 plots with 17 plots in the mangrove. As you can see, the green plots, those are the 11 existing sampling units that has been measured in 2019, and it is remeasured in 2023. Where in 2023, we also have 6 new sampling units measured, which strengthens the existing mangrove data. Moving forward to the results of the mangrove monitoring, we can see that we have monitored the mangrove species. We have the black mangrove, the red mangrove. The black mangrove is more dominating in the coastline, and the red mangrove is, we can see that it's more dominating in the river lines. So you can see the red mangrove in red and the black mangrove in green. We have also monitored the mangrove graveyard stands, giving us an idea of the mangrove health. The mangrove cover dynamics, as you can see here. In specific years, there may be some losses in some areas, but gains in other areas, as you can see from the graph above. And if we look at the net change, we can see periods of gains followed by periods of losses. The mangrove area for Suriname, measured in 2018, is about 908 square kilometers, and for 2023, we have measured an area of 830 square kilometers. Yes. If we look at the mangrove coverage distributed over the various districts in the coast of Suriname, we can see that in the district called Saramaka, that is in the center of Suriname, of the coast of Suriname, we can see a highest coverage of mangrove in that district, followed by the district Kamowaina, that is in the east of the country, and Ikeri is in the west. So this gives us an idea of the mangrove area per district. Yes. Thanks to the historical maps, we also can obtain an idea of the mangrove ages. And as you can see, we have a lot of old mangroves that is in yellow. You can see the old mangrove stands, and in black or dark blue, you can see the young mangrove stands. And here you can see the distributions of the mangrove age stands between the various districts. Okay, we have also done carbon measurements in the mangrove forest for the above ground living biomass, above ground dead biomass, and the below ground living biomass. Looking at the results of the measurements, we can see that as expected, in the center we have a highest total above ground biomass, because as we have seen, the center of the country also has the highest coverage of mangrove. And interesting from this data set is also that in the river lines, from the maps we have seen that it's dominated by the red mangrove. And that is also like a very high above ground biomass, 102, as you can see there. And also interesting to note from this data is that we can see that the below ground biomass is much higher than the above ground biomass. It's about 2 to 4 times higher than the above ground biomass. Saying us again that the mangrove ecosystem is very important to monitor. Looking at the carbon stock between the various sampling units, we can see that there has been a measurement in 2018 and 2019, and it has been remeasured in 2023. And there are some new plots established in 2003. And overall, we can see a positive net change, except in the sampling unit 2 and 3. But we have also seen that these sampling units also consist of decaying mangrove plots. So that explains why we can see the negative change in those plots. Yes, sorry. Also complementing this data, we have recently also collected data with the TLS. Results are still being processed, and it will be available very soon, as I've heard. So further on, the ages of the mangrove is also being, there's also being measured. So from south to north in the district of Coroni, with a distance of about 2 kilometers, 40 plots has been set up, and field measurements has been done, and also drone data has been collected. So results of this project is still being analyzed also. And of course, all this data is being shared in our geographical platform. We also have the statistical platform copy, and where you can see all the statistics of this data. And as Farah mentioned, data must be shared, it must be used. The more it is used, the more useful it is, right? So here you can see the data. Feel free to check it out. And of course, we have done a lot, but we have still some challenges. So the main challenge is that these activities are still project-driven. As you have seen, it is done within the GCCA Plus project. So there is no technical and financial resources for sustained monitoring. As you know, the work is quite hard. It's not easy to find people to go in the field with us to collect this data. So that is still also a challenge. We also need a national coordination when it comes to mangrove. And of course, we need to continue our capacity building and further research, because we will continue to improve our data. And of course, regular mangrove forest inventories is needed for consistent data updates, but also we are dependent on the financial resources and the human resources also, right? Yes, we have done all this work not alone. As I've mentioned, we have partnered with CELOS and the University of Ghent. And also, thanks to this project, we also have extended this collaboration with the University of Suriname. And they have also done some work in the mangrove, but I would like to invite my colleague from the university to give us some update. Carol Liefeld, to give us some update on this project.
So thank you, Valentien. Thank you for your presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. As an add-on to this presentation, I will briefly tell you a bit about the blue carbon restoration project that we're executing in Suriname. The executing agency for this project is the Anton de Kom University of Suriname. And it is one of the last projects that was approved within the Blue Carbon Fund's series of projects. So unfortunately, I don't have a map with me, but our project area is in the northwest of Suriname. In the northwest of Suriname, in District Nikeri. It's in the Bipanmuma, which is actually an area that spans the District Nikeri and District Coroni, but we're specifically working in Nikeri. Our project area is in an isolated area. You can only reach it by boat, and there are no inhabitants there. Just to give you a bit of an idea of in what kind of circumstances our project is. So, Right. Okay. So the structure of the project more or less follows the structure of the other blue carbon restoration projects, in that we're doing a baseline study, which will do a historical analysis. So how has this area developed through the years? It will characterize the area in terms of geomorphology, topography, hydrology. It will also look at or characterize it in terms of the ecology. We'll do a blue carbon assessment, and most importantly, I should also mention we'll do a socioeconomic study, and most importantly, we'll look at the drivers of mangrove degradation in this area. So, So aside from the baseline study, we'll be executing 2 interventions. One of them is reforestation, which speaks for itself. We'll be planting black and red mangroves in the area. And we'll also be looking at implementing sediment trapping units. A sediment trapping unit is a permeable wooden dam which allows seawater to enter the area, but it breaks the dynamic of the waves, allowing for sedimentation to occur. And that will serve as a nature-based solution that should protect the area, allowing for it to regenerate, and for the reforestation efforts to be more successful, to increase their chances of success, or the rate of survival. A part of the project initially, of course, is monitoring, but unfortunately we won't have sufficient time to monitor the restoration of this area. So what we are going to do is probably work together with foundations such as the Foundation of Forestry, as Valentien has mentioned, and with CELOS, and also seek synergies with other projects that are working in this area and see where our projects overlap, and so that we can fill the need for monitoring that we won't be able to cover within the timeline. The last aspect of our project is that we will be doing, sharing knowledge dissemination among the general public, so that they know what we're doing and learn along with us. But we also aim to bring the different stakeholders together: government, NGOs, academics, and the local community, and to facilitate discussions among them, so that hopefully they will find ways together to work towards preserving, conserving our mangrove forests. So that's in a nutshell what we'll be doing, or what we're doing and what we'll be doing within this project. Thank you for your attention.
Muy bien, muchas gracias por la presentación desde
Thank
la
you
perspectiva
very
de
much
Surinam.
for your presentation
Ahora
concerning
vamos a
Suriname. Now we're going to move on with
nuestro
Panama.
próximo
Our
ponente,
next speaker
último de esta
and
sesión,
last
el
of this
doctor
block
Julio
is
Montes
Dr.
de Oca
Julio
Lugo,
Montes de
quien
Oca
es
Lugo,
director de resiliencia
Director
costera de
of Coastal
Audubon
Resilience
Américas
for
y
Audubon
también
Americas
de
and
National
also
Audubon
National
Association
Audubon
en representación
Society
de Panamá.
representing Panama.
Dr. Montes de Oca cuenta con más
Mr.
de 20
Montes de
años de
Oca has
experiencia en
over 20
humedales,
years of
conservación
experience in
costera y
wetlands, coastal
adaptación basada en
conservation, and
ecosistemas.
ecosystem-based
Ha
adaptation.
ocupado
He
cargos
has
de
held
liderazgo
leadership
en la
positions
UICN,
at the
en Wetlands
IUCN,
International,
Wetlands
la
International,
GIZ y la Secretaría del
GIZ,
Convenio de
and the
Montes.
Ramsar Convention
Adicionalmente,
Secretariat.
es
In
miembro
addition to
del
that, he's a
Comité
member of
Directivo
the
del
Board of
Global
Directors of
Mangrove
a Global
Alliance.
Mangrove Audience
El título de su
Alliance.
presentación
Title of his presentation
está pendiente por
is pending confirmation. That is a surprise. Let's welcome him with a warm round of applause.
La última presentación.
Hey, the last presentation for today, please. I'll try to be brief, or maybe not brief, but I'll make it funny. So first of all, thank you to the organizers of this event for giving me the doctorate. I think this is I didn't do this. I have to say that I am not a doctor. So, just to clarify, I'm going to talk a little bit about the focus or the approach that we had in Panama. We heard some things yesterday about Panama that were very interesting, but I'm going to talk about the whole package of what we did and how added to this has this approach that I want to consider that it is holistic, and is also providing us these steps to take, or maybe a clue of where to go in terms of conservation of the sites that we are working on, but also all the mangroves in Panama. There's some basic data of the project here in this first slide. They have a name that it was not sexy at all. The evaluation of the ecosystemical service, and then we find another name that was nicer, that is Blue Natural Heritage, in Spanish, Patrimonio Natural Azul. We designed this lovely logo that you see, and I have to say that I added the bird, the ones you see over there. If not, the organization, they will, reprimand me if you don't. We need to thank quite a bit the UK Blue Carbon Fund. We have constant support from the UK Embassy as well, and DEFRA, and also the management of the project from the BID or the IDV, and that also I'm going to mention at the end, had a very important role, not in the execution per se, but in the local connection with also the politicians and the strategical side of things with the country. So that was a really good lesson to learn. Additional data, we work closely with the Ministry of Environment, obviously hand in hand, trying to provide support. And maybe one thing that I want to highlight here is where do we work? We have two key sites, and one of those was Panama Bay, that is close to Panama City, to the ones that have been there maybe. And the other one was Parita Bay. And the reason for those two sites was not because of the mangroves. Yeah, we know there is value and ecosystemic services there, but from our point of view, being very egotistic from Audubon, for these lovely friends that you see in the pictures, the one on the top, the Western Sunset Paper, and the one, and this one is found in Panama Bay, and in Parita Bay is the other one that is called Wilson Plover. And so how important are these too? Well, in Panama Bay, between and these Western Sandpipers and other shorebirds, and they have around 1 and 2 million of birds a year, due to the migratory route and the season. So that is the importance of in this hemisphere. We can say even globally. In the case of the Wilson plover, in the 10% of the population of the global population is also going through this area. So then we need to pay attention to this aspect of biodiversity and the way in which we integrated this in a space in which we're talking much more about climate change. So now getting into the details, we need to talk about the components that we have and what is the holistic approach that I was mentioning. First of all, very vast component with science to develop these scientific baseline that is providing us the next step for these things that we do. Also, the evaluation of some of the ecosystemic services as well, and also building knowledge and awareness, and also engagement and engagement from different key stakeholders that are direct, not really communitary because of the nature of the project, but from stakeholders that are involved in the preservation of mangroves at the national level and also on the side, and also how do we connect with the policies and the strategies of the country. So now getting into the innovative science side of things, I love to see the historic mapping we did. And also this exercise, I love to see how you guys did that. But in our case, taking a look at the satellite data by decade, we documented. I'm going to give you an example, but we did it in the two sides. We documented the gain or maybe loss through different decades, and I think that this is very important to understand the dynamics on these sides, because not only the natural dynamic, but the ecological dynamic in the Barita Bay in the 90s. What happened? You don't remember, maybe because I'll confess I'm somewhat old, but in the 90s we had what's called the white spot, that is a disease from the shrimps, and this area stopped completely. Okay, they had an impact, yes, no, and after that, what can I do with that area, with that? I think that kind of analysis is useful to understand the dynamics on the sites and to know how can we act in the future. So this is the traditional work that we've been doing, the development of the baselines for these two sites, the extensive analysis the most extensive analysis that have been done in Panama, hard work. Luckily for me, I didn't do this, but the colleagues are doing quite a bit of effort on the field, and also the work that on the lab, and also try to rescue other thing that it was said yesterday about the building of the capabilities in our field and lab teams. We integrated students and also volunteers are trying to build this national capability that, as we know, is so important. And I'm pleased to have two of those students that did their thesis with, and maybe that were also on the field and in the labs, are now here present, Diana and Joemi. Say hi. And through this participation into the MRV process, they can now continue the work that they were doing and learning and adding their own experience to the development of this work that I think this is something that is wonderful, and we are very proud of that. And this is something that we saw briefly as well at the documentation of the carbon stock. And I think that this is a correlation that is lovely, and it is also important with the mangrove communities that were present. And that was also done also through some innovative work of mapping and analysis through artificial intelligence to correlate where the carbon is and to which species is, or community of species is associated. And we see the importance of this for future management and for identifying the restoration areas, and also to see how can we do these things. We can zoom into these maps and then, okay, what's happening on this side of what's going on here. I think that is also fascinating. Another thing, from getting back to science and biodiversity, and the birds that some of us care a lot, maybe more than we should, with the acoustic monitoring of these birds on this mangrove area, initially thinking with the hypothesis that, okay, there's a kind of correlation between the carbon content between the migratory birds, and there was always not really that much, but there's the general correlation that a healthy mangrove is going to have more birds and more biodiversity. And the beautiful thing about it is that this is something that we didn't do in this case, but maybe for the future we'll do it to be a participative effort in thinking about the need of developing the monitoring in general, and also for biodiversity, and also use the MRV side of things is a lovely tool, I think, a beautiful thing that we could do. In terms of the ecosystemic services, we did this initial analysis of the health of the ecological health of these mangroves. And this first analysis was letting us to identify with these subdivisions between the in this side to see in which parts you can have a higher state of conservation or better. And the things that we need to strengthen that is going to be management. And in the other ones in which you see that they're at risk or there's a kind of level of degradation, there is more potential for restoring. On this side, I also mentioned another effort that we did related to the services. That was a conservation plan through the subject conservation methodology, and in a very participative manner, we identify which of the elements of this ecosystem of Parita was important for people. You saw the black shell, white shrimp, and also the lovely Wilson sandpiper and red mangroves. And this is technical information that through the strategies that were developed for the conservation of these subjects, we were hammering this with the local authorities for them to take into consideration for the local plan, and particularly in the territorial management. In terms of the ecosystemic services, when talking about the services, we're talking first about the coastal protection services and having the with a mangrove and without a mangrove scenarios, and how important it is in swimming in these areas that maybe are a little small, and this also is very valuable for planning, for local planning. And the other services that we saw, we also saw fisheries, but this has had a limitation because of the information available. If you want to do analysis on that, please make sure that there is enough information or that there is access to this information. The other service that we saw was the value of carbon itself. So what was the price for this carbon sequestration in a period of 100 years? I think that we did this with Invest, and it is documented that it's going to be an increase of this stock in 34 years if we don't perturb this in any way. And what is the value of this using the social cost for carbon? And we calculate that in the case of Parita, it's going to provide benefits for around $39 million. And in the case of Panama Bay, it's 116 million. So it is very important. It is the kind of data that could be taken to someone that does not understand about conservation but understands money. Another important component was education and also outreach and awareness, and we developed or we strengthened the existing program from our friends of Audubon, Panama, for environmental education in primary schools. A program that's called Green Classrooms, that in which we expanded the coverage in schools that are close to these two sites, and also developing in these new schools in the Parita side, and also some activities and a curriculum of education, but also multiple activities, even field trips and festivals for birds and conservation, recycling, and something that I was telling this to someone here. Even the fathers are the ones that are also motivated to be involved in this. But oh, we need to do a bird costume for the kid, and they do. They start being competitive and everything, but it's also creating this awareness in them. So the kid is learning, but also the fathers and mothers are doing so when they get the message. Another initiative that we are very proud of is the development of this exhibit that was moving around with information about the mangroves with the project, and also general information. And we developed this with the Biomuseum. Is Natural Sciences Museum in Panama. We presented this in 4 cities for around a month each, and also with environmental interpretation. This Biomuseum gave us guides for us to be able to present the information to schools, and we did coordination with the Ministry of Education for them to come to this place and know. And these were in public places, in the malls, and that is what you see a lot of people in these 4 cities, and also for people to have this exposure to to the knowledge of mangroves, and it was very fruitful collaboration with the Biomuseum. And I'm going to give us, I don't know if you know about the Biomuseum. This building is an architectural wonder because it's supposed to be something elusive to the forest. And take a look at the museum. Also, I'm going to give another piece of data that is very random. It was designed by an architect that is called Frank Eddy, and that has won the equivalent of the Nobel Prize of Architecture. That would be the Pritzker Prize. And he did this museum in Panama. And you say, okay, why in Panama? And does anyone know? The one, if you know, I'll give you a free entrance to the Biomuseum. Now, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Oh, his wife is Panamanian. Just because of the wife. So pretty good for Panama, I guess. Yes, it's random data. And to start closing, just before I get the yellow card, we work also strongly in synthesizing the scientific and technical information. That on one side, we have the technical reports that are now available. I didn't mention that we are now closing this project that just recently, a couple of months ago. We have a story map that we are going to share, in which we have the information. And besides that, we had something that is maybe more simplified, that is these policy briefs from a variety of different topics, and something that makes this more digestible for the decision makers and other organizations that might be involved. And then I get into the topic of the NDC and the process. And in the middle of the project, Panama decided to move forward within the timeline of this updating of these NDCs. And in 2023, they say, okay, we need to update that NDC. So you know that this has a variety of different sectors and areas. So we saw the opportunity of focusing in this maritime and coast sector. So we need to do some recognition, and that's pretty good to Pew that also worked. That is what they do in multiple countries, but they involve directly with the Panama government, and it is supporting this process and also steering with the experience that they have. This graph is one of those that you can definitely not read, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it with the colors. And over there, you see the time that it was set up from 2024 to 2030, and it is the time frame for this commitment. And the commitments related to these maritime and coastal ecosystems are on the left, in green and yellow, over there, and includes some things about mangrove and also goal for restoration. But what I wanted to show here was the correlation with the actions that we did on this project. That are the ones that these blue boxes that you see, but you can read them. But I promise you, they have a connection with this, and in white, the actions that we need to take in the future to be able to achieve those goals. So I think that it is very important to have this kind of analysis for us to not only say, okay, we have a way of doing these things, but we're moving forward, and this is what is next. This is what we need to do to achieve our goals. And I was telling them about these things in the community of practice meeting, that in some cases, in Panama is one of those cases, they care deeply about the international commitment, and even the domestic commitment of compliance with the laws is weak or something is missing, but the international commitments, they do pay attention to it. So how can we use these international commitments to mobilize the action in terms of conservation for mangroves? Other thing, it might be also a shameless plug, but it's part of the work that we did with this project. We incorporated in this process the creation of a chapter of Global Mangrove Alliance in Panama. And the participation of organizations and also myself I have multiple hats in there. And you can see Mark there in the picture. This was workshop in Senegal, and how the participation in this space is opening the opportunity for collaboration and bringing more knowledge and all these other wonderful things. And I put an example that recent visit that we did for CI project in Costa Rica for restoration. And we're talking about Audubon, okay, how, let's do the Costa Rican chapter as well. So these opening the possibilities for collaboration and for bringing knowledge and spreading awareness of the region. So Panama chapter created the plan for implementation, and now they have a small support from the this initiative to be able to continue with the coordination for a year, and also this participative process. In some countries, they have, as an example, this base group of organizations. They did something different in Panama. They made it broad all at once. They bring communitary groups and indigenous communities and everything. And the point here, or the takeaway, is that there is not a recipe for working with these national chapters. We have a lot of support from the chapter in Colombia because they are already established, and thank you for that to the colleagues here in Colombia. And they have their own dynamics here. And one important thing here is that the government recognizes officially this Panama chapter as a subcommittee of the National Committee for Wetlands. So the ministry is there, and they know that there is a group of the people that work in mangroves in Panama that is supporting conservation. I see the yellow flag. Okay, I was almost ending, but okay, they learned lessons about this project. Luckily for us, we have the possibility of having the adapted designs and a certain flexibility to be able to adjust to the emerging conditions. A proposal that was written in 2018 or 2019. Well, the environment did change, and for example, I didn't mention that we even had a change of government just with 1 year for finishing the project. So then we need to start thinking of what things can I do before changing government, or what can I finish, and do the follow-up for the coming government for them to also, okay, take this is well made, you need to finish and take the credit for it. That is the approach that we also have in our regions for us to deal with these topics. But because there are sometimes changes from top to bottom, and you don't know until you just get this news months later. So we need to try to navigate this. So we always been working closely with the politics and priorities of the government, and we see that we need to work with the climate change directive and maritime and coast directive, the directive of protected areas, and cultural and environment direction, and maybe from the outside we need to try to do this internal coordination. Funny enough, because the authorities, they're always preoccupied with it day to day, and these protected areas, you need to change with it, climate change. We speak with coasts and seas out. And that is also an important part of the work. And once again, how can we translate this technical information to these policy briefs? I don't say that we did this perfectly, but we did the attempt, and I think this is something that is very important, the effective ways to do this. Also important, the cooperation agreements, not only with organizations and the academy and collaborators, researchers, NGOs, and civil society groups. This is what helps. We need to add it to be able to potentialize it. You don't need to do everything on your own. And you need to be surrounded by the proper capability and also the knowledge. And as last, to this outreach to platforms, the community of practice, and it was developed along the way because we have this regional project also through the IDB, and it is very fortunate that we can continue with this work, and particularly because in Panama we were not able to move forward with the monitoring, and this is something that is key to be able to install the tools and the platforms. They have their own systems, but also the way in which they communicate these to international systems, and also the reports of the international commitments, be it for climate change or biodiversity even. and how we explore the communication with other platforms and initiatives that are for maritime corridors and regional initiatives for um, um, other things. So I think it is also very important to be aware and paying attention to these spaces. And at last, to mention, and I have good news, recent good news, that was last month, we have the Ramsam Cup on Zimbabwe, and the next one is going to be in Panama. So how can we think strategically, how are we going to position our topics as a region, um, taking into consideration that the eyes of the world are going to be looking at us. So we need to start thinking about that and potentialize our work. And that's it. And thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer.
Invitamos a los ponentes.
We now invite the speakers for this blog to come to the stage. We're going to have the panel that is going to be moderated by Mr. Jared Allen, that is a main specialist in climate change from the IFE. This panel is going to focus on the practical lessons learned from MRV in work in each country, lessons learned, and the opportunities for collaboration and next steps to expand regional alignment.
Hi, everyone. It's the last session, and I know we are tired. So, can we just stand up a minute, stretch, and